Welcome back. We're to the part now where we need to create the IPv6 rules to allow inbound traffic for server 1 for HTTP and HTTPS. So let's take a minute and just kind of draw this out. With IPv4, we had to create network address translation rules. With IPv6, we don't. With IPv6, everything is routed. There is no network address translation. Now, what's not shown here is there are routers in front of us and routers in front of that, and these routers in front of your PF1 and my PF1, they need to know about your network. They need to know about your, well, let's do it down here, your 2620. They need to know about this, and that's all been done for you. Well, why? Well, because the router in front of yours, Edge 1, I'm responsible for Edge 1, and the router in front of that, I forget the name of it, but it's one of the campus routers, and Jesse's responsible for that. And so when we get an IPv6 address assignment, which we got a 56 /56, which is a great assignment. It's a huge block of IPv6 addresses. I then subdivided that out into all these other blocks that belong to each of us. Each of us gets a /64, which is normal for IPv6. That's a very normal allocation, is that when you assign a block, you assign it as a 64, /64. So all of the routing rules to send your IPv6 address to your PF1, those are ahead of you. Those are out of your control. And if you suspect that there's a problem with those, then you have to let me know, and I'll troubleshoot Edge 1 and check the routing rules in Edge 1. And if we can't resolve it there, then I have to talk to Jesse and ask him to take a look at his routing rules. Okay, so that part of it, getting the packet to your PF1, that's out of your hands. That's ahead of you or upstream from you. But what we do need to do is PF1 is a firewall/router. And for IPv6, what we're going to do is we're going to listen on the WAN interface. We're going to listen for packets destined for this address, and we're going to listen on port 80 and port 443, and we're just going to allow those. So you could think of them as routing rules, or you could think of them as firewall allow rules, but there is no network address translation involved. It's just on PF1 we have to configure PF1 to allow inbound requests destined for your server 1's IPv6 address on 2 different ports. So let's go do that. So I'm back here on PF1 for my domain, and I go to Firewall and I go to Rules, and I can choose to put them ahead or below my IPv4 rules. I'll put them below. These rules, you always want them at the top. Rules are processed from the top down, and so if you put a rule in front of these, then it's evaluated first before these are. So typically, this isn't always true, but typically your deny rules come first. That's what the red X is, and then allow rules come after that. There are exceptions. I have an exception at home. I have deny rules for IP addresses coming in from outside the US, but our Plex server uses Amazon Web Services, which the Amazon Web Services side of it bounces between different countries around the globe. And so I have to have that allow rule before my deny Africa, deny South America, deny those rules. Okay, so what I do here is I'm going to do this. I go there, and it's an allow rule. That's a pass, so we're default. Here we switch it to IPv6. Okay, still the same. Source is any. Destination now becomes a single host or alias, and we put in the IP address, the IPv6 address of our server 1. Destination port, we want to be specific. So we're going to do, first of all, I'll do HTTP, and from HTTP to HTTP. And what should I call this? I call this my HTTP IPv6 rule. Okay. And then I create it. I'm just going to take a minute and look it over here just to be sure that I got everything right. Looks good. Again, there's sometimes I forget to hit apply, but you can hit apply. So that was the port 81, and I'll let you do the 443, and then we'll compare notes again. But remember that what we're doing here is not, it's not set in stone. So if we made a mistake, we can come back and we can edit and change it, and that's a lot of what we do. We do a lot of troubleshooting, and that's why this course is valuable, because it takes you out of following step one, step two, step three in a book, and it causes you to have to think things through and troubleshoot. And we've had a lot of troubleshooting, and we will continue to have troubleshooting, and that's of great value. So I'll do my IPv6 rule, and then we'll compare. Okay, so I've got my IPv6 HTTPS rule done. And we'll just pause here for a minute and take a look at these. Remember, the IPv4 ones use NAT, and that's both noted here. The IPv6 ones are just allow rules, firewall allow rules, and that's noted here. It looks good. So now it's time to test, and I'll let you do that. Now you can't test from CorpNet or DevNet. You have to test from something off on the internet, something outside of your CorpNet or DevNet. Why? Well, because it needs to come in through PF1. It needs to reference, your Azure DNS. Azure DNS needs to point to your PF1. Your PF1 needs to have the rules that allow either IPv4 or IPv6 to translate. You're thinking, well, Randy, I don't yet have IPv6 at home. Actually right now I'm without IPv6 at home. I'm in between. I had it and I currently don't have it, and I'm waiting to get it back again. Well, what you can do in a case like that is you can move over to your head 224 GPC and test IPv6 from there. And I would like you to do that. I'd like you to test name, beta, and then also IPv4, IPv6. So beta dot your state dot bobstaco.com. See that works from the internet. Check that IPv4 answers from the internet. That should be pretty straightforward. And then IPv6. If you don't have IPv6 at home or wherever you're working from, then remote into Lab G and use your PC in there and see if that works. I'll do the same. I'll try to verify that. So we're to the troubleshooting point now. Now there is one last thing to do, but and that's to do the auto HTTP to HTTPS forward. But let's get all this working first. Let's not complicate things beyond just getting things working. And once we have everything working, then we'll go in and we'll make a change to the IIS server running on server 1 to have it listen on both port 80 and 443, but when a request comes in on port 80, have it automatically reroute that request to port 443 and convert the request from HTTP to HTTPS. All right, we'll do some troubleshooting and we'll continue on.